Unitarian Universalist Church, building community, inspiring growth, creating change. Here in the heart of Kansas City, we come together to create this hour of shared reflection so that we might be renewed in courage for these times and inspired to lives of greater dignity, higher purpose, deeper generosity, and more effective action. If you are new to Unitarian Universalism or to our congregation, we want to get to know you and share a part of your journey. If this place is already your spiritual home, welcome once more. We need one another, and it is good to be together again. Through the gifts of technology, we also gather virtually to celebrate community and connections as we lean into the values of justice, compassion, and reason. Welcome to all those who are joining us in this way today. Together, we learn the love that has the power to overcome both loneliness in the heart and oppression in the world. Welcome to our service this morning. May the words and music and images that we offer today nourish our best selves, calling forth abundant wisdom and love.
Arise, O souls, all arise.
Good morning. It's good to be together, either online and especially here, and so good to see your faces. I'm Jean Patterson, a member of the congregation, and it's my pleasure to welcome all of you this morning, this beautiful, continuing beautifully fall morning. Excuse me, I've got the fall gucks here. Today we welcome to the pulpit Reverend Erin Gingrich. Reverend Gingrich had served the Unitarian Universalist Church in Reston, Virginia, and then the First UU Church of Des Moines as their Associate Minister of Social Justice. Today she will share her perspective on how to deal with life. Welcome, Reverend Gingrich.
Good morning. It's an honor to be here with you today. Thank you for welcoming me. I used to think when I first started in ministry, wouldn't you love to come on a Sunday when there's somebody new speaking to hear? And then I realized, when someone new would show up, it's like, well, who are you to be saying anything to me about life? And that the relationship mattered so much to being able to really receive what someone had to offer. So I am humbled, and I thank you for how you show up for one another and that you're willing to hear from me today. So it's good to see you. I am not. No. Okay, so the hard part is over. We've all made it here. So let's really let ourselves arrive here as we gather. Because now we can just be. And just be here. You've already RSVP'd yes to the party of life, to the party of life's belonging. You've said yes to this community's invitation. So let's be here for that belonging. Let it land. Feel into the space in between. Between your own lungs, these bodies that hold us and carry us, between your feet, the ground, deeper, eternal connection and life that is always with us. To just be here. The center of life is everywhere. So let's be here for all of it, saying yes again and again and again, arriving into being and belonging here.
Good morning. My name is Ari, and I light this chalice for respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part.
Did it work?
I don't think it did.
There you go. Excuse me. Now, please stand as you are able and join in singing hymn number 1010, We Give Thanks. Then remain standing for the affirmation of our covenant.
Precious day, we're all gathered here, and it's far away. For this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. We're all gathered here.
And now let us affirm our covenant. Goodwill is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
There's no such thing as a dragon. Billy Bixby was rather surprised when he woke up one morning and found a dragon in his room. It was small, about the size of a kitten. The dragon happily wagged its tail as Billy patted its head, and Billy went downstairs to tell his mother. "There's no such thing as a dragon," said Billy's mother, and she said it like she meant it. Billy went back to his room and began to dress. The dragon came close to Billy and wagged its tail, but Billy didn't pat its head. If there's no such thing as a dragon, then it's silly to pat its head. Billy went downstairs for breakfast. The dragon came along. It was bigger now, about the size of a dog. Billy sat down at the table, and the dragon sat on the table. This sort of thing was not usually permitted, but there wasn't much Billy's mom could do about it. She had already said there's no such thing as a dragon, and if there's no such thing, you can't tell it to get off the table. Mother made some pancakes for Billy, but the dragon ate them all. Mother made some more, but the dragon ate those too. Mother kept making pancakes until she ran out of batter. Billy got only one of them, but he said that's all he really wanted anyway. Billy went upstairs to brush his teeth. Mother started clearing the table. The dragon, who was quite big now, made himself comfortable on the hall rug and went to sleep. By the time Billy came downstairs, the dragon had grown so much that he filled the hall. Billy had to go around by way of the living room to get to his mother. "I didn't know dragons grew so fast," said Billy. "There's no such things as dragons," said Billy's mother firmly. Cleaning the downstairs took Mother all morning. With the dragon in the way and having to climb in and out of windows to go from room to room. By noon, the dragon filled the whole house. Its head hung out the front door, its tail hung out the back door, and there wasn't room in the house that didn't have some part of the dragon in it. When the dragon woke from his nap, he was hungry. A bakery truck went by. The smell of fresh bread was too much for the dragon to resist. The dragon ran down the street after the bakery truck, and the house went along like a shell atop a snail. The mailman was just coming up the path with some mail for the Bixbys when their house rushed past him and headed down the street. He chased the Bixby's house for a few blocks, but he couldn't catch it. When Mr. Bixby came home for lunch, the first thing he noticed was that the house was gone. Luckily, one of the neighbors was able to tell him which way it went. Mr. Bixby got in his car and went looking for the house. Finally, he saw a house that looked familiar. Billy and Mrs. Bixby were waving from a window upstairs. Mr. Bixby climbed over the dragon's head onto the porch roof and through the upstairs window. "How did this happen?" Mr. Bixby asked. "It was the dragon," said Billy. "There's no such thing," his mother started to say. "There is a dragon, a very big one," Billy insisted as he patted his head. The dragon wagged its tail happily. Then, even faster than it had grown, the dragon started getting smaller. Soon it was kitten size again. "I don't mind dragons this size, said Mother. "Why did it have to grow so big?" "I'm not sure," said Billy, "but I think it just wanted to be noticed." Have you ever had something be a dragon in your life? No. Well, I wonder if you've ever had a chore or a homework assignment or something that you had to do but you really didn't want to do it, and so you don't. And then your parents or your friends or your family or your coworkers, they keep asking you about it and asking you about it. And the more you put it off, the more worried you get about it. And it just gets bigger. Just because we don't do something doesn't mean we're free from it. Maybe we don't want to deal with someone who is acting out and treating us in a way we don't like, and we might try ignoring it. And then we find ourselves staying away from certain places at lunch or on the playground or in our neighborhood or our church. We choose where we sit, who we're going to talk to. We spend a lot of time and energy dealing with this person we're avoiding or this thing. And then when we find the courage to actually name it and face it, and we speak up and we talk to that person or we do the thing, the chore, the homework, the conversation, it starts to become more manageable, and a little bit easier. May we all find the courage to name our dragons and face them.
Go now in peace, may love guide all your ways. Beauty be the blessing of your nights and days. Truth on your lips and kindness in your deeds. Faith to follow where the human spirit leads.
In Unitarian Universalism, most congregations follow a tradition of young people spending a year delving into the big questions of life and formulating their own answers. We call it coming of age. This year, our 7th through 10th graders embark upon this inner journey together. They will travel through topics associated with belonging, becoming, and what is beyond. Their destination, as much as any of us has a destination on our spiritual journeys, will be a special service next fall, when they will have the opportunity to share with the congregation what they have learned of themselves, their beliefs, and how they seek to show up in the world. I ask our youth who are participating in Coming of Age this year to come forward and stand in front of the steps. Their names are Charlotte, Sierra, Jenny, Khalil, Sean, Rose, and Ruby. Please join us. Also, traveling with them in their classroom spiritual explorations are their teachers, Cynthia Butcher and Joe Robertson. Would you all come forward as well? Sure, I'll go down the line. Rose, wave. Sierra, wave. Jenny, wave. Charlotte, wave. This is Joe and Cynthia.
You are embarking on this journey together. Will you bring your open hearts, your wondering minds, and full selves to your time together? If so, please answer, we will.
We are grateful for the 7 mentors who will also journey with the youth. Each youth is paired with a mentor to form a deeper connection over the year, getting to know one another and delving into the important topics together. Each of the mentors come into this time knowing they will likely gain at least as much from the relationship as they have to offer. Will the mentors here with us this morning please come forward? Their names are Amy Robertson, John Du Bois, Beth Andes, Dawn Dickey, Richard Thompson, Julia Shafermeyer, and Joyce Jonathan.
We thank you for making this commitment to our youth. You will be someone they can call upon on the good days and on the not so good days. You will be there through the wrestling with meaning. You may offer your wisdom and gain their wisdom in return. Will you bring your open hearts, wondering minds, and full selves to your time together? If so, please answer, we will. May this be a year of growth and encouragement for all of you seeking on your journeys. Please be seated.
All right. Hello, everyone. I tried to print my stuff, but my printer broke, so here's hoping that this goes smoothly. This is the first time I've been here on the pulpit, so thank you. So when I heard the call for coming of age mentors, I was immediately into it. It was one of those, of course, moments. So I'll tell you a little bit about why it's meaningful to me and why I'm asking for your money. So as my younger self, I know the importance of having positive, invested adults in one's life. As a UU adult, I've been coming and going from services for many years, all the while wondering how I might join this community in a more active way. So the mentor opportunity is perfect. It really does feel spiritual because I'm full of faith that positive things will develop. I learned I don't want biological children, but I like being an aunt, a person who shows up to Center Elementary every week to read with kids, the family friend, maybe a co-parent someday. To be honest, I used to only be comfortable with adults, really, but as I've done more of my own inner child healing, I've really started to enjoy youth on a whole nother level. So it feels divine to connect through generational barriers. And hopefully, I think I have something to offer. I'm just gonna bank that as a counselor, I've practiced listening, and I'm interested. So I don't know what this journey brings, but I think it's gonna be good things. So a lot of you may know the mentorship program a little bit, some not so much. So the purpose, as I understand it, is that mentors will connect with youth throughout the year. So for example, on Friday, some of us went to do karaoke and have burgers with our mentee, and it was it was the first mentor time out, and it was really fun. So I got to see Rose sing a TikTok song, and with a mic and everything, which is amazing because it's a little awkward being on a mic, and it was priceless. So there's many wonderful things to do locally, but we want your money also, we want your money for Boston. Because Boston is where All Souls Youth can really experience the historic depth and breadth of the UU tradition. It's a land where there's more than one UU child in every high school, and there's a lot of UU adjacent tours to choose from. So I've heard that one of the options is touring Unitarian John Adams' home. He and his son were the only of the first 12 presidents that did not own slaves at any point. Personally, I like the modern culture stuff. Youth will probably stop by the UUA, see publishing companies like Beacon Press and Skinner House, and maybe it'll inspire their own writings and work of art in addition to their reading list. Besides sites and tours, this trip is really a coming-of-age process, not just a destination. Throughout the year, UU youth are challenged to develop a personal spiritual credo. It's definitely not a linear development, but probably nightly reflections in Boston will help youth continue shaping their credo. So last point, please rest assured they will be modeling financial savvy the whole time as well. I understand in years past, All Souls groups stayed in hostels rather than hotels and collectively cooked nighttime meals rather than eating out. So any money you offer will be put to good use and spent thoughtfully. Thank you for your contributions, and I'd be happy to give you any updates that I'm aware of as the mentor program continues. Thanks.
All of the lies I believed got the better of me. Never thought there could be so much doubt. All the blame and the hate, the self-hurt and heartbreak, a fist that kept holding me down. And I was my own worst enemy. And I found my way through it all. And finally I see I'm enough, just as I am. Feel right at home anywhere that I stand. Hold out my heart in the palm of my hand. I live my life like nobody else can. Yeah, I am enough. I am enough for the laughter, the life that I'm after, enough for my wildest dreams. 'Cause every flaw from my toe to my jaw is exactly where it's supposed to be. And I know I've got something to say. And I'm gonna remind myself every day I'm enough, just as I am. Feel right at home anywhere that I stand. Hold out my heart in the palm of my hand. I live my life like nobody else can. Yeah, I am enough. I am enough. Oh, I used to look in the mirror and see all the fear. I could see all the fear in my eyes. Then I saw it get clearer, like the blue in the skies. After the storm blows through, the sun will shine down on you. I am enough, just as I am. Feel right at home anywhere that I stand. Hold out my heart in the palm of my hand. I live my life like nobody else can. Yeah, I am enough. I am enough. All of those lies I believed got the better of me. Never thought there could be so much doubt.
All right, please join me in dedication of the offering. We dedicate our actions and our actions to the mission at the heart of this congregation, to build a respectful and caring community, to inspire personal and spiritual growth, and to create a change towards a just and compassionate society.
When little John was about a year old, his parents noticed very thin fibers protruding through his pores. After another few months, the fibers had extended themselves. They began to form curls. The condition alarmed his parents, so they took little John to a doctor.
And after examining him carefully, the physician called in several specialists. And after conferring for several hours, they reported little John was unique in medical history. His ganglia, or nerve endings, were growing outside his skin. Since there was no record of this having happened before, it was not clear what the ultimate effects of such a condition would be. And since little John was otherwise in excellent health, it was decided to do nothing for a while but observe.
Of course, one immediate problem was little John's rapidly developing extreme sensitivity to everything and everyone around him. The doctors alerted his parents, warning them that they must be super sensitive to his every move and touch. Being very sensitive people anyway, they agreed.
As little John grew, so did his ganglia, until they trailed about him as he walked. And while it was not a pretty sight, surprisingly, it had some advantages. For example, he learned from the very beginning, first from his ever-concerned parents and then from others, that he could always count on someone watching over him.
Indeed, he learned early in life that anyone who came into his orbit would always pay attention to his every move for fear of hurting him. He found that he could plow a path through any group of friends by just walking toward them.
People would always retreat at his advance for fear of stepping on his feelings. When he engaged in sports or when he just wanted to be first in line, all he had to do was start in the direction he chose. And his approach itself proved to be an open sesame.
Sometimes he encountered people who had not been forewarned about his condition, and then he had to point it out as early in their relationship as possible. Once they understood, however, they never tried to get in his way.
Now, all of this is not to say that individuals never felt resentment toward little John. Some of his classmates and one of his brothers in particular, who were most competitive for certain goals, felt stifled by his condition. But they never spoke it aloud. All managed to quiet their resentment with self-recriminations about their own insensitivity.
And so it went. Little John graduated high school,
having done fewer homework assignments than any child ever who attended,
and he obtained a secure job,
though less qualified than most of those seeking the same position. One day he met a woman he liked.
Being extremely shy and not having enough confidence or experience to refute her own poor self-image, she was thrilled at the advances of this very attentive, if somewhat strange, creature. She treated him with the utmost deference, and her pity soon became love. Everywhere they went, she watched out for him. In time, the guiding principle of her life became, how can I help this man avoid pain?
But after they had been married a while, she began to tire. Still, she tried, for this poor man could not help himself. But it became increasingly difficult for her to constantly be mindful of his needs. She decided to confess her increasing insensitivity to her friends. She mentioned it to her family, her minister, to her doctor. All comforted and sympathized, but could offer little practical advice, and so they urged her to be more patient.
She tried again to shape her existence to his needs. Then the headaches started.
Then the little tick in her eye.
Soon she found she was losing weight. Colitis further restricted her freedom, and it was not long before her thoughts were bordering on suicide.
Now, she dared not tell little John, of course, for fear of hurting him. Why, if he knew that all of this was due to his condition, he would be inconsolable.
One day, as she was walking home, she chanced upon a mother cat nursing her newborn kittens. As they scrambled over one another in their thirst, the mother carefully guided each one to its turn, stretching out a firm but gentle paw as she lay contentedly on her side.
Then Little John's wife noticed that one of the kittens had been born lame. Its leg had not been fully formed, and it had more difficulty maneuvering than the others. And strangely, it was also the most aggressive. While the other kittens, when satisfied, went off to sleep, this one kept coming back to wiggle its way in front of thirsty others. Each time, however, the mother cat pushed it away, at first gently, but then with successively harder whacks.
Little John's wife watched the poor kitty and the inhumane mother. But when she returned home, upon finding her husband reading in a room, she planted herself in the doorway and began to stare. A little while later, Little John, desiring to enter another room, marched straight for the doorway that framed his wife. She did not budge. Closer he came, closer, never actually thinking to ask her to move. After all, he had never had to ask anyone to get out of his way before. Suddenly, he stopped, confused. What should he do? First, he assumed his most wounded look. Then he tried one that was more winsome and boyish, but his wife was like a rock. In desperation, he finally spoke.
Move? You know I cannot squeeze by.
Nothing.
What's the matter with you? He yelled. What are you trying to do to me? This is like a trap.
Then she did begin to move, not aside, but rather directly toward him.
He retreated.
She continued on.
He moved back faster, but still on she came. Soon he was cornered. Have you lost your mind? He said incredulously. Careful there, you almost hurt me, he said pathetically. And that did it.
She raised a foot and stomped. With all her might, came down hard on one of his trailing nerve endings.
He screeched, either from pain or shock.
Again, she stomped, and again and again.
He ran past her, but she pursued. He screeched again, and the scream encouraged her more.
Stomp, stomp. She continued chasing him from room to room, up and down stairs, from the attic to the cellar, through the kitchen to their bedroom.
Until, exhausted, they both collapsed and fell asleep.
When Little John's wife awoke, her headache was gone for the first time in months.
Her eye, too, had lost its quiver.
And for the first time in a very long time, she sighed without pain and felt relaxed.
But more astounding still was what she saw beside her. For when she looked over at Little John, she found that his ganglia were no longer curled around him on the floor. On closer examination, she realized that they had disappeared altogether.
In fact, they had completely recoiled inside his skin.
Thank you for the beautiful reading. I'm guessing that story didn't end the way you thought it might, or at least not in the way you thought a story in church would end. You know, where you stomp on your problems and other people. Sometimes there just isn't a graceful way to exit a rut. For years, the wife had been backing up and recoiling into herself to make room for him, his extreme sensitivities. And she had contorted herself for so long. She became ill and she couldn't take it anymore. Her body was saying, no, stop doing this. It's killing you. Inspired by this cat, she went home and tried what that mom kitten had done, whacking successfully harder and harder, and not so gracefully, but because she couldn't take it anymore, and she needed to create a better balance in the amount of space they were both able to occupy in their relationship. And sometimes things have to get really bad in us, in our situations and what we're experiencing, for us to become willing to do anything different. And when we do, it doesn't always come out the way we'd want to be seen by everyone, right? But sometimes we have to be cornered and desperate to become willing to see what is actually going on. It's amazing, the mother in the story, the children's story, who climbs in and out of the window, lifts up the tail. I mean, when you think about and you step back and look at the many ways we can fit ourselves to a situation and go out of our way, and how much we have to suffer before we notice we're playing a role in this. It's not just this other person's extreme sensitivities. I am a part of this. Rabbi Ed Friedman, the author of this fable, was also a family systems coach for clergy. And he contends that we think we're being nice when we don't say anything, or when we step out of the way, or when I'm just going to accept him as he is. But you can tell by the way the story unfolds that we're fooling ourselves if we think we can live like this, and that this is what it means to care for another. And Friedman says that religious institutions are the worst offenders at this. In church after church, some member is passively, aggressively holding the whole system hostage, and no one wants to call them on it, or fire that volunteer, or force that person to leave, because it wouldn't be the Christian thing to do. And Friedman says, and it has nothing to do with Christianity, because synagogues do this all the time also. Another systems thinker, Peter Steinke, sometimes uses the term reactive person instead of an abuser. And regardless of the term we use, what I really want you to consider is this. Steinke says, rather than facing off and turning to face what I call that dragon, and naming that dragon and dealing with it, we make trade-offs. We make the trade-off. And we give up our space. We give up our dignity and our worth just to stay out of the way of the ganglia or the outsized nature of another person. Steinke says we treat reactive people with kid gloves, and we mistake appeasing for loving. Sometimes in churches, I have seen this, we can even invite a reactive person into leadership to lead a new initiative or a group, thinking if only we love them enough and give them enough attention and affirmation, they will find some healing and different ways of being, and they'll grow in self-esteem, and then their behavior will change. When in reality, we invite someone into leadership, they think, what I'm doing is working and getting me noticed. And what that person may garner from the invitation is that I should keep doing exactly what I'm doing. People don't grow because we want them to. We grow when we want to. We grow when it serves us, or when the pain of remaining the same, that twitch in the eye, the colitis, the suicidal thoughts, when it becomes our house has run away down the street, When it becomes so bad for us to stay in this situation that we finally say, okay, anything will be better than this. We can mistake that appeasing for respect. We can say to ourselves, as you use, I'm just affirming the worth and dignity of that person, right? But affirming the worth and dignity of another person doesn't mean becoming a doormat and denying our own worth and dignity. It doesn't mean that we say all behavior has worth or dignity. And sadly, it seems like in the short term, there are lots of times that I think we all can, give up that space just to make it through the Thanksgiving meal, right? Just if we only see that person once or twice a year, we can just let it go. But if we work with them or live with them every day, at some point, we're likely to end up stomping on them because we've contorted ourselves so much we just can't take it anymore. And I don't know about you, but when I do that, it's not consistent with my values. It's not consistent with my faith. It's not consistent with my belief in the dignity of all life. It can be easier to just talk about that person and say, they're a bully, look at their behavior, it's so problematic. It can be a lot easier than it is to look at how we're participating in it. Why am I tolerating this way that I'm being? What would it take for me to shift in this? And it doesn't mean that I have the power to change the whole situation or this person, but it does mean I don't have to shape myself to it. I'm allowed to stand on my own ground. And it's really scary when it happens in our families, in the deeply entrenched patterns, in who we tiptoe around, who the whole family tries to keep calm. And so we do all these things that we find ourselves, I wouldn't do this at home or with my own friends, I would never tolerate this, but look at what I'm doing now. And it's also really scary when it happens in our marriages and in our communities of belonging, like our congregations. At what cost? Is that really belonging? Is that conforming? And what do we give up when we give up our authentic selves to make that space for another? When I first started in ministry, my first call, it was made clear to me in the candidating process that the office administrator, who could be found more often outside with a chainsaw working in the woods and cleaning up the branches than found at his desk, it would be more than okay if that changed. Couldn't wait for the minister to come and solve this. In fact, even though he was 40 hours a week, he did not format the order of service. So there was a volunteer who did it very resentfully and made it very clear to me that that situation needed to stop. So once I was there, we started reviewing his position description and revising it, and I let him know that creating the weekly order of service would actually be part of his responsibilities. And he responded by taking a day and a half to format and actually print a pretty simple Word document. It had a lot of errors, also in spelling and all these kinds of things. And I said, ooh, okay, so this seems like this is taking a lot of your time. What training or support do you need to be able to do this in a more timely fashion, and so that it wouldn't be so stressful for you? And so I started looking into computer classes like Word, and the following week he announced his retirement. And oh, how the people celebrated his departure. Hooray, we've so appreciated your service. It was clear to me that I was not going to cover his duties, that I had enough on my plate as minister, that I was not going to do that. But why had they accepted this for so long? I have my guesses, including the fact that they had grown to accept unacceptable behavior on many fronts. They had had several music directors who abused their authority, music directors who had volunteered for the position. And so they're like, well, how do you fire a volunteer? We don't know how to do that, how to hold that person accountable. But both of these music directors had come onto people who were in the choir. And if the person didn't take them up on their offer to go on a date or to interact, they would ban that person from the choir, effectively, by not telling them about special rehearsals or choir events. And if that person wanted to share their musical talent in the congregation in a service, one of them would say, oh, well, it sounds like you've got music covered that day. I don't need to be here. And they were like, okay. And I think in part they said, okay, because their minister allowed it. And I think because their minister is the one who paved the path for that kind of behavior. Women would come in for counseling, and he would tell them how attractive they were, how if he were their husband, he would treat them differently. And he was married, and he had affairs with over 20 women in the church. And when one of the women said, I don't think we should be doing this, his response was, well, if you tell anyone, it's really going to split up the church. And then that's going to be on you. Do you really want that? He didn't start out being a dragon running down the road with the church to other women's homes, right? Doing whatever he wanted. His boundary violations started with testing, right? Breaking little ones here and there and seeing how people would back up, get out of the doorway of his ganglia, and right? His choices were being tolerated, and so he kept taking up more and more space, and he was beloved. He was truly beloved. He was a wonderful public figure. He was also a lawyer involved in the civil rights movement in D.C. in the 70s, and the people in this community outside of D.C. were so proud that this person wanted to start a church in their community. He was gregarious. He could command a crowd. They were thrilled. He also did things like say in the service, we're going to have a serious conversation about our budget because Mary didn't do such a good job leading the budget drive this year. Right? I see you laughing. That's a great response. Like, that's not okay. But people started looking at one another for like, did that really just happen? And making inner adjustments in themselves to continue to belong, to conform. Another congregant told me that the minister had initiated a friendship with him, and he felt so special. And he loved him, and they thought they had a really mutual, wonderful relationship. And a decade or so later, his wife told him that she was one of the women who had had an affair with this minister. And he was humiliated. That minister, the affair had happened before he had gotten together with his wife, but that man never said anything about it. He performed the wedding, and he just felt betrayed by his friend and this spiritual leader. I came to understand what was happening in this church through this story. There's no such thing as a dragon, and through this fable. Understanding how we go from simply getting out of the way and trying to do the Christian thing, the nice thing, to just ignoring it, hoping it will all go away. And sometimes that works, but sometimes it just creates more space for people to take up and act in ways that are harmful to the well-being of others, including ourselves.
And so in this system, we can't just look at the problematic behavior of the minister, the music directors, but over time, what's going on amongst those people that they're okay with this, that they look to one another and say, this isn't okay, but okay, it's okay. And is that really what we're called to with one another? Is that really what inspiring personal and spiritual growth, to the looking for and searching for truth and love? Whether that's here in our congregation or in our workplaces or our families, our faith calls us to make room for the dignity and worth of all, including ourselves. Our faith calls us to tend to how we show up not just for social justice, but also how we show up in the space with someone who commands a crowd, or with the person who seems to be the center of the family. Calls us to notice when we're tiptoeing and walking around on eggshells, just trying to keep everything the way it is, so we don't set them off because they're super sensitive, but in fact, maybe they're not sensitive, actually. Because we're afraid that he'll start drinking again, or she'll turn into a ball of anxiety, or that person will explode and leave, and oh, that person's so difficult. But we sign up at times with our choices when we go along with that to let that person hold us hostage. And we encourage immaturity and irresponsibility in ourselves and other people, and that is not love. That's like momentary sense of safety in an unsafe situation. We give up our own inner compass in exchange for that conformity. Friedman says he wrote this fable to help us see that we're not really loving ourselves or one another when we make ourselves small. And we're just becoming enmeshed. And love is not about enmeshment. Love is about being known, having sacred ground, having that honored, being authentic. It's about taking up space. It's about being able to be whole, to being responsible for ourselves and in connection. And my core theology above everything else is how magnificent this gift of life is in each of us. No matter how you define the mystery of how we came to be, however you frame the holy, it's remarkable that we're alive. We all deserve to enjoy this, to celebrate it, to feel magical and alive in our own skin, to really be here for life's party of belonging, to really inhabit it and know it. Not to tolerate it, not to squeeze through, not to just pass through and like, oh, that was my life, that was my marriage, that was my workplace, right? But we do that, don't we? We do that. That's not a saving gospel. Tolerate life, oh, be nice. With our first breath, we inherited universal belonging. We just already are. And whatever personal or societal harm keeps us from knowing that, that is a call for healing and social change. When we find ourselves, we are enough. We don't have to be our worst enemy, right? And so when we find ourselves on those eggshells, oh man, doing it again, creating safety in a way that actually really causes me harm. May we remind ourselves that we also stand on holy ground. This being, this breath, what a remarkable, wondrous gift. This being is older and wiser than my thinking mind.
We are held by a belonging on this earth and by this mystery of life that we can never fully comprehend, but we can sense it. And we can rely on that sensing to bolster our courage, to hold our dignity and our space. And in this way, when we do this and we practice this with one another, we honor ourselves and others in our interactions. We allow life and love to flourish. So may it be so. May we celebrate. Woo! Not tolerate. We're really like, this is my life. May we accept and enjoy and celebrate that. Amen. Let's sing it. Let's sing it. Let us go forth, giving up and taking space mindfully, compassionately, celebrating and RSVPing yes to the party of life's belonging.